following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Handoff middle. First down. Touchdown! And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
6-0. How does that sound, Cougar Nation? BYU football continues to roll along and defy expectations. It's been a fun ride so far, halfway through the season, and you look ahead. We're not going to look ahead too much today, Mitch, but it's favorable going forward. I think you can really start to get excited and dream about what can become. But for today's show, we're looking at the past. We're breaking down the win against the Wildcats. Boy, that was a thrilling win. In the next segment, we'll have Crew Wakely. He'll call in right after practice, talk about this unbelievable BYU defense, number one in the country in passing efficiency defensively. We'll get his thoughts on what's working so well, why they're forcing so many turnovers. And then, of course, like we do every single week, it's Cougar Nation for a reason because we take your calls, 801-575-8255. We want to know who has been the MVP for BYU football through the first half of this 2024 season. A lot of directions you can go. We'll give you our thoughts as well. But, Mitch, this is such an exciting time for BYU football, man. It feels like it's been, decades. 2020 was the last time they started like this, but it didn't feel the same as this season feels.
This is a good time for BYU, number 13 in the AP Top 25 poll. So much to be excited about, and let's dive into it with our takeaways.
Cougar Nation takeaways. Mitch and Matt analyze BYU's last week of play and what it means for the next week.
Cougs take down Arizona 41-19. It was another beatdown in LES. The vibes are immaculate. It's Cougar Nation on KSL. Folks, America, this is how we do. I love that Gus Johnson. I can't get enough Gus Johnson content in my life right now after that broadcast, that game. The vibes were just at an all-time high for BYU after that performance. Midway point of the season, 6-0. And, early on in the game, defense, slow start out of the gates, but, man, they turned it on.
That's my first takeaway is I thought the defensive adjustments specifically really changed this football game. And shout out to Jay Hill and Kelly Papinga and that entire defensive staff. Maybe I'm just, still getting used to this new defensive scheme and strategy. But boy, is it a fresh of breath air, Mitch, to see a defense adapt to the way that the game is going. That first Arizona drive, Mitch, they went 11 plays, 95 yards, scored a touchdown, and you were wondering, what is happening? Huge chunk plays, defense out of position. Like, this is not what we're used to. The next 6 drives, Mitch, the BYU defense gives up 102 yards, and BYU forces 4 turnovers, if you include the turnover on downs, which I happen to include that as a turnover. It just felt entirely different. There was a quick change, a quick adjustment, and the defense that we all know and love from this 2024 football season, they came alive. And BYU scored 24 points off those turnovers. I just love seeing an adjustment because they were clearly out of sorts early. They figured it out quick and changed the football game.
BYU comes out of a bye week and shows well. Last season against TCU, they struggled. Kalani noted that they approached this year's bye week a little bit different.
I think the approach that we had last week was different than what we've had, and I think we're going to stick with that, So we have another bye coming up later in the year, and I think it's proven that we can get the most out of our guys, and we can keep some momentum going too.
BYU does have a second bye week coming up after UCF later, coming up in November. But my first takeaway has to be LJ Martin. His return was significant for BYU. To me, Matt, he's the number 1 running back for the Cougars. I thought he played very well, and he didn't start to get touches until about the 2-minute mark in the first quarter. I was really impressed with what LJ did. 11 carries, 49 yards on the ground, a touchdown, and then the reception from Parker Kingston, who just always dials up a special. He is the ace in the hole on those special plays. But LJ Martin, 3 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. LJ is a big-time running back, and look, BYU's entire running back unit is pretty good right now, but I think LJ Martin is the best of the group.
And hopefully you get Moa back this week. Ropati, yes. Ropati averaged 7.2 yards per carry. He did have that unfortunate fumble, but as a team, you rush for 5.4 yards per carry. You don't have to rely on Jake as much. Nice to see the run game get going. That's going to be important going forward. My other takeaway, amongst many, is I thought Jake Retzlaff played his best game as a BYU Cougar. I was really impressed with him. He pushed the ball down the field, yet he made good decisions. There were a lot less questionable throws in this game than in other games. His completion percentage is down at 56%. Look, there was like 3 drops in that game. If it's 21 for 32 for 250 yards, 2 TDs, you're feeling really good. And I loved Mitch. I absolutely loved his press conference after the game. It feels like there is a new confidence, a new swag. He's taken on a leadership role. This is what Jake said about the quarterback play at BYU after that win.
We love to give quarterbacks credit. We love to give quarterbacks the credit for the records, but it's not that, man. I mean, I was 0-4 last year. That means I was the worst quarterback in the country last year, and all of a sudden we're 6-0, and I'm the greatest. Like, no, that's not it. It's the guys around me playing really well that's making it what it is. And so grateful for them, grateful for everybody who came before me, and excited to keep this going.
Great leadership, Mitch. Did it feel different to you? Because to me, it just felt like this is a guy who has settled in. He's confident. He's not worried about making mistakes and losing his starting job. That's a great place to be. That's where you want your quarterback to be, to have that type of confidence. I came away really impressed.
No question. Jake Retzlaff feels completely comfortable as QB1. And, 3-4 weeks ago, before that Kansas State game, there was still some questions. Think about, in Laramie when Gary Bohannon comes off the bench in mop-up duty and he throws a pass and it was a loud roar from the BYU crowd in Laramie. No longer is that a debate. This is Jake Retzlaff's team, and he was in complete control. My second takeaway, Isaiah Glasker is an absolute monster. And look, if you listen to Cougar Sports Saturday, we were telling you about this guy for a couple years, but injuries always derailed the fall camp promise. It was nice to see this season fall camp production materializing in games because Isaiah Glasker's been outstanding. This stat line was nuts. 5 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 1 pass breakup, 2 quarterback hurries, and oh, by the way, he had a touchdown.
Forced fumble too, right?
Forced fumble as well. Isaiah Glasker was elite. Justin Ennis said coming into the season, might be the best athlete I've ever coached. When coaches say that, they're not just throwing that out there, hoping it hits. It almost felt like this guy is as good as they come, and he is going to be a legit star. That was back in August, before anyone really was talking about him outside of shows like this one, and Glasker just looked outstanding. I thought he was brilliant.
We're taking your calls, Cougar Nation. This is for you. Let's go to our good friend down in Texas. Michael, what do you got for us tonight?
Hey, guys. Yeah, sorry, Matt. You said you didn't want to look forward. I didn't know before I jumped on. But
it's all good. Hey, that's what's fun about this start, Michael, is we actually can look forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I wanted to respond to Mitch's Cougar Tracks today because he did and I want to plug it. He did a nice recap of where we've been so far in the season and what the expectations should be. And I just got to say, Mitch, I think your expectations are a bit too low. I honestly believe it's not a hot take, guys. I believe the expectation should be to make the playoff, and I believe that the goal should be to win a playoff game. And the reason I think this is because I think going in, I think we'll be 12-0 going into Arlington. I don't think there's a team on the schedule that can beat us without us helping them, like Boise State 2021 type game. I don't think there's a team left. I hope that a 12-0 team, no matter what happens in Arlington, gets to the playoff. I don't believe there's no justice in the CFB world, but I'd hope that would happen. And I just really think that should be the realistic goal. And I think that should be the baseline expectation, and especially for the team. Like, we're not going to beat ourselves. And if we don't beat ourselves, no one else on the schedule can. There's not a team left that can, guys. There just isn't. If we're looking at it very objectively, there's not a team left that can match up with what BYU's doing. And so if they are taking it seriously and if they've learned from last year, I think that should be the goal. So that I just wanted to comment on that. I just think the whole fan base's goals are probably a little too low for what the way the schedule is lined up.
Love it, Michael. Michael from Texas always brings the heat here on Cougar Nation. We want to hear from you, 801-575-8255. Cougar Nation sponsored by Central Bank, 133 years of trusted banking service, modern technology, and fast lending decisions. Proud sponsors of Cougar Nation, Central Bank. Taking a break, we'll hear from Crew Wakely next, live here on Cougar Nation.